Andy Burnham, the new PM, which, by the way, some people in chat were being positive about him, but I always told you, and I was right on this, a friend of Israel is an enemy to all life on Earth. Andy Burnham, the new PM who is looking to open up more oil and gas drilling contracts, was forced into an emergency Cobra meeting where he decisively didn't talk about climate change at all. See, the Cobra meeting was on the extreme heat slash drought slash famine slash everything that's happening in the United Kingdom and the world right now, following, among other things, intelligence reports from MI5 that the national security of the United Kingdom is being critically compromised by the climate change. And climate change did not come up during the meeting. He refuses to talk about it. He's essentially a climate denier, except rather than not believing in climate change, he simply wants it to happen because it serves the interests of his masters. Over 70% of England is now considered to be in drought. Jesus Christ. Why would anyone diminish climate change at this point? Because Andy Burnham is a loyal slave of capital, including fossil fuel industries. I said it. I said it. Labor's unimaginably bad. Well, if it makes you feel any better, it's pretty much all of them, you know? Pretty much all of them. The funny thing is that in spite of Andy Burnham's infinite deference to Netanyahu was still on a fucking podcast the other day calling Britain the Islamic Republic of Britain. You know, there's never any amount of deference that will actually get you respect from these guys. Which is, you know, just shocking, really. How do I even cover this? In what order do I cover this?
Across the country, wildfires are tearing through our countryside. Habitats that have taken decades to develop are being destroyed. Wildlife is being devastated. Communities are being put at risk, and firefighters are being pushed to their limit. These are the consequences of a climate crisis that is happening right now. So while I welcome
my predictions that climate denial will actually increase as climate change goes on, just as anti-vaccine sentiment became widespread during COVID, yeah, that's probably true. Capital is going to pull out all the stops to get to rise denialism to its highest point. I just don't think that it's going to last very long because the climate consequences that we are going to see in the coming months leading in through the next year are going to be so bad, I don't think it's going to be possible. Like, the capital class doesn't have complete control over everything. They try, but for the most part, it's just a, you know, hodgepodge of incentives and biases that they try to work alongside. The idea that they could keep a lid on this forever, I just don't think so.
the Cobra meeting that we've been calling for to address this emergency. I must ask why. When the Prime Minister was questioned over new North Sea oil and gas, he responded, "The bigger questions, obviously, will come at the right moment in time. Now is the right time. The climate emergency has arrived. The government has a decision to make on Rosebank and Jackdaw. You can't acknowledge the extreme devastation of wildfires and extreme heat while still leaving the door open for more fossil fuels. We know where that road leads. More oil and gas means more emissions."
I told you guys not to be excited about Burnham. There were some people in chat being excited about Burnham. I told you. Any Blairite, any labor friend of Israel, they're all the same. They would happily sacrifice the entire population of the United Kingdom if it meant continuing to serve their masters.
More warming, more extreme weather. Look at the devastation that's happening around us. How much more evidence do you need? Rosebank and Jackdaw must not go ahead. No new oil and gas in the North Sea.
Yeah, good luck with that. Still a while away from public attention being anywhere near where it needs to be. Jeremy Clarkson shares bleak update in Diddley Squad Farm. Oh yeah, I saw this. This dipshit's been doing climate denial for years and years and years, and now, look who's not getting shit because of the non-stop heat wave. Fuck you. God, look at the grass in England, man. Aerial images shows cars parked on scorched ground near Mr. Clarkson's pub. Deserved? Yeah, it's a shame that climate change can't only hit the right people, you know? He made fun of Greta Thunberg. Oh, I mean, he's been doing climate denial stuff for ages and ages and ages. Former Top Gear host Jeremy Clarkson says idiot climate activist Greta Thunberg has killed the car. Yeah, it's not the only thing. He's been doing this nonstop. Nonstop. We'll see how public interest in addressing climate change increases over the next year because we are finally in for it.
You know, I was schwitzing a lot in the month of July, although granted, you know, I schwitz a lot all the time. But the bottom line when it comes to voters is, simply put, they don't care. They don't care. I mean, just look at these numbers. Okay, top issue, a midterm vote. You can list up the 3 issues. The economy, not surprisingly, comes in at number 1 at 54%. Immigration, 28%. Look where climate change is. It's tied for 14th. Tied for 14th, all the way down here at 3%. Johnny, I'm not the greatest mathematician in the world, but I sure as heck know that 54% is a whole heck of a lot higher than 3%. So despite the climate being so warm in the month of July, the hottest month on record here in the United States of America, the voters simply put do not say that climate change is going to be an issue in which they vote upon in the midterm election.
And how
Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts.
much people are concerned has been changing over time.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, the other thing, which is, you know, how much concern is there when it comes over time? And you see this 3% here, and you can see these slides right here. Say climate change is a very big problem. In 2016, it was 40%. It was 40%. Look where we are in 2026. It's 39%. It's 39%. Now, Johnny B., you know, you're talking about change. Where the change we have seen is partisanship, right? And what we can see is Republicans, more so than anybody else, have been shifting away from the idea that climate change is a top issue for them. Take a look at this. The least important issue for Republicans, it's just at 14% in certain...
Man, I didn't know that the number of Americans who believed in anthropogenic climate change was less than half. That's crazy. About half of Americans say the Earth is warmer due to human activity, but it's just under half. We're all going to die. I think one of the issues why climate change is not higher because neither side's actually arguing anything to do about it. I mean, again, like I keep saying this, and I understand that it makes people upset, but the problem here is that nobody has a solution to this, because any solution that could be implemented would involve societal upheaval so drastic that it's politically impossible to call for it. Politically and legally impossible to call for it. We're talking about something that goes so far beyond policy. You know, it's a problem no one's like to engage with, like, the level of severity here. Okay, imagine we know for certain that next year only 1/2 of the amount of food that humanity needs to fully survive will be produced globally. Just roll the dice on this, okay? What political solutions could you offer to this? There's no way around it. Only enough calories for 50% of the human population will be produced next year. There's no way around it. There's no way to produce more. What politically viable solution would a person implement? The problem is there actually is none. Republicans get away with the easiest avenue, which is xenophobia. Fuck everyone else, we get ours. But for the climate, that doesn't work. Climate change will affect everyone. You can't protect your own around hurricanes and tsunamis. The most politically expedient thing to do, in this case, really, certainly for the Democrats who can't rely on xenophobia as their primary outlet for addressing it, is to do nothing. Is to do nothing at all. Because any meaningful solutions you start to propose, they just become completely politically unviable. Democracy fails here because nobody can account for the externalities. Nobody is willing to co-sign the sacrifices that need to be made. Not even the most climate-conscious people, I don't think. The amount of global harm and interpersonal harm that this is going to cause is so overwhelming that nobody wants to accept responsibility for the changes that are going to have to be made to address it. Do you agree veganism would help? Well, yeah, of course, obviously. But, like, you know, good luck pushing that. Unfortunately, the consequence of us doing nothing is that circumstances will force us to change, whether we want to or not, which is going to be by far the most destructive way of handling this, you know. The grinding, halting, just excruciating shift in circumstances caused by the death of billions. But do you think China has enough power to lead humanity out of the climate? No. No. China still hasn't done nearly enough, you know. They're not even remotely close to going carbon neutral, you know. They've invested in solar, which has been very helpful, but no one is willing to make that change. Of Republicans, only 20% believe in anthropogenic climate change. Really, they just shouldn't be allowed to vote. I think it's interesting that for Democrats, your level of education increases the likelihood of you believing in anthropogenic climate change, but for Republicans, there's no effect whatsoever. That's interesting. Colt? Yeah, I've heard that. Mostly old Republicans who don't believe in it. Well, whatever. We'll see how it goes. Sorry about Burnham. I'm glad that Polanski has been holding down the fort over here in the United Kingdom. We're going to have to deal with a pretty agonizing, couple of months as El Nino really starts to warm up, no pun intended, and all mainstream media is avoiding addressing the topic. Not going to be great. Kind of person who says it's just summer. Well, we'll see how the higher food prices affect them, On a Malthusian level, would the mass death coming at least lower the burden on the other end? I mean, it doesn't really fix the problem because population and carbon use don't really correlate to each other, right? Like, the population is booming right now in the Middle East, Africa, but those people use an unbelievably small fraction of the resources that a first worlder does. So just speaking Malthusianly, every Westerner killed by climate change is worth hundreds in the third world killed by climate change in terms of the reduction of carbon output. And we're the least likely to die because we've fortified ourselves the most thoroughly. We still will, of course, but we're the least likely. It's still going to hit everyone. No, unfortunately, a mass uncontrolled population reduction due to climate change doesn't really fix the underlying priors here. The way climate change is presented to the viewers in legacy media right now is all fun in the sun, people hanging around drinking fountains. Yeah, just this isn't for anyone. I think it was the Telegraph? Who was it who referred to the UK's fifth heat wave this summer as glorious? Who was that? Let me see if I can find that. It was some UK news publication. It was The Sun, fittingly enough. The Sun, Britain set for glorious 36 degrees Celsius highs next week as UK set for fifth heat wave. You just remember, as you read stuff like this, The Sun is aware that nobody reading this believes it. They're doing this just to virtue signal to their corporate owners. That's it. The Sun is aware of the fact that they, along with basically all news, serve a corporate agenda, and the corporate agenda is to deny climate change for as long as is humanly possible, to forestall the consequences of ending the world. So the Sun, the writers, the editors, and the readers, everyone knows that it's insane to refer to this as a glorious heat wave. The reason they put this in here is because they know they have to find positive spins. It doesn't matter how incredulous you feel about them, What is it? The final humiliation is that they bother to put effort into their lives? No, it was that they don't bother anymore? Ah, well, Zero effort. Read the article. What could they possibly say? It's a Sun article. There's nothing here. It's meant for people who are brain dead. Over 10,000 dead in Europe this summer, by the way. Oh, trust me, this number is so small compared to what it's going to be next year that this is just a footnote, In the grand scheme of things, this is absolutely nothing. It's a rounding error. In the UK, we're almost certainly going to have flooding in the winter too because the ground is too dry to properly absorb rainfall. Yup. So when the rains finally do come around, it's not even going to replenish the reservoirs. Not nearly as much as it needs to, at least. Nasty, nasty stuff. Temperatures in the East Pacific are now widely 5 degrees Celsius above average, peaking at 6 degrees Celsius. They're inventing new colors. Every time you take a look at the El Nino chart, they've invented new colors. What can you even say? This was a particularly pointed little chain of posts that I saw that I thought made the point quite well. A record El Nino will act like a climate time machine. It'll help push global temperatures in 2027 to levels that otherwise might not be expected for another decade or so. So think of it this way. You're in your 20s right now on average. 2027 will be like what your average summer day in your 30s will be like. That'll just be like the norm. So it's kind of like a job fair where you can, get a feel in for how things are going to be. So my 40s, I was just guessing I don't know your age, I'm talking to a large audience right now. The bells, my lord, the bells. Shh. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Next year is a 95% chance of being the warmest year on record. Average global temperature anomaly currently predicted to reach plus 1.76 degrees Celsius. Yeah. Under these scenarios, temperatures would jump roughly 7 to 13 years ahead of the recent warming trend, reaching levels that might otherwise become typical around 2040. I'm 47, Vaush, and I've been hearing since grade school about climate change. Well, you're about to hear about it in an entirely new context. Sorry, not tomorrow. Next year is going to be A real beater. Although Hausfath expects 2028 to be cooler than 2027, he added that human emissions are adding a permanent El Nino's worth of heat to the climate system every decade. The food crisis from climate change will only exist as a food crisis if we attempt to perpetuate the meat industry. If we use that animal feed land for actual food, won't we be fine? Yeah, but the problem is we won't. See, this is the problem with liberal solution making, you know? It's like monarchy isn't a bad system because monarchs can't do good things. A good monarch with good decision making could, in theory, produce outcomes and implement policies that are better than any good democracy. All you would need to do is have a super duper wise king with really good decision making skills. The problem is monarchies don't produce really good decision making kings with great problem solving skills, and liberal democracy does not produce economies that are capable of rapidly shifting to meet the needs of the population concerning externalities and climate change. Yeah, we could abolish meat eating and redirect our, agricultural production towards human need, but we won't. Any system could produce any outcome, theoretically, but they tend not to. They actually tend to produce outcomes in line with the interests of the ruling class. That's why kings tend to be focused mostly on fucking their cousins or whatever, and, the capital class is primarily interested in enriching shareholders. I appreciate you talking about this. More people need to understand you're not dooming. Listen, you'll know what dooming is, because once people realize this, there are going to be mass suicides, okay? I'm still on the clean side of the fence, dooming-wise, because I'm like, well, if, there's still value in caring, which is about as optimistic as anyone can reasonably be, given the data. What potential ruling class is interested in saving the world? Well, considering the world is primarily composed of people in the working class, and people in the working class are the ones who are going to be most directly affected by the consequences of climate change, it stands to reason that an economic and political system where the ruling class is the working class, some kind of dictatorship of the proletariat, if you will, that system might produce better outcomes. Now, would it exactly? At this point, even if you could snap your fingers and make the whole world communist, I fear that we are so far down the pipe that some unavoidable amount of suffering is still over the horizon. But it's nice to imagine. Socialism plug. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm like Harry Enton for Kalshi, but with socialism. Get your socialism plug here. What a delicious cherry cola. This is why Zuckerberg and friends have been building bunkers. Oh, basically every oligarch on Earth right now is doing doomsday prepperism in the hopes that they can survive the crisis they're causing. I think I saw a report just the other day that Zuckerberg is reportedly extremely paranoid. These people are not happy, and frankly, they're not smug either, A lot of them feel powerless and are just doing what they can to escape the crisis that, again, they're causing. Same reason Exxon and what have you were, begging Bush Sr. to regulate the fossil fuel industry. Everyone is a hapless victim of circumstance, unfortunately, even the most powerful people. The bunker thing is stupid, it's moron behavior? Yeah, no. If you're an oligarch, building an island fortress to survive the end of the world makes about as much sense as a king trying to escape the Black Death or mass famine by hunkering down in a castle. That is to say, it might preserve them for some time, but the systems that preserve their rule are going to fall apart anyway, and then eventually the plague's going to make its way into the castle. You're in the Netherlands now? Dog, I don't know. Look at the background. I ain't in the Netherlands yet. You'll know when I'm in the Netherlands. It'll be all I'll be talking about for a couple days, I'm going to be like, guys, I had a stroopwafel or something. You'll know when I'm in the Netherlands. You'll know because I'll be underwater. The Peloton is sad. Yeah, well, my studio currently is a residing ground for a couple of things that we need to donate, so... I think our billionaire oligarchs themselves think the crisis will be inevitable. Well, this is the reason why everyone who isn't a Marxist is a fucking idiot. Individualistic explanations of how we arrive at these problems and how we solve them have failed time and time and time again. No matter how many well-intentioned good CEOs we've had, and there have been some, we're still here. No matter how climate conscientious the wealthy and educated have become, we're still here. At the end, everyone, no matter how intelligent they may think they are, is subject to the doctrine of perceived self-interest, the mandate of their material interest driving their behavior, or perceived material interest, obviously. People can be lied to and people can misunderstand. But individualistic answers will do nothing here. You could snap your fingers and make every single oligarch an altruist, and it wouldn't change a damn thing. Everyone is still beholden ultimately to the superstructure, which is why material change is the only actual meaningful bedrock of historical progress. And unfortunately, in this case, the material change is not being brought about by technological advancement or, a change in social circumstances, but rather like oblivion. That also counts as a material circumstance. Mainstream economics about incentive structures, not individual. Incorrect, socialist gun that. Different kind of incentive structure. The perceived rational self-interested consumer is a straw man constructed by economists to explain how their little, I don't know what you'd call it, their Rube Goldberg machines work, their doohickeys. It has nothing to do with greater historical change or material progress. Economists, for the most part, have led us, well, I can't say they've led us here, but the idea that capitalism could ever meaningfully address these externalities is part of the reason why we're here. Currently living daily power outages and water rationing sucks ass. Yeah, it's not great. It's not going to be great when it hits the mainland United States either, There is absolutely nothing that would prevent what's happening right now in Puerto Rico to happening to New York City or Los Angeles. Nasty, nasty, nasty business. Let me see if I can get anything more from Polanski. It's just nice to have someone even close to being a world leader talking about climate change. Pretty soon it's the only thing that anyone is going to be talking about because everything else is going to seem just totally, totally immaterial next to it. God, look at this, man.
Parts of Europe are experiencing the fifth heat wave of the year. Extremely high temperatures, over 35 Celsius, are expected across large parts of the continent today. As the latest spell of...
What other incentive is there besides profit? You know what's a really, really great example of how individual perceived self-interest doesn't align with material or class-based self-interest? Why are billionaires also intent on ending the world they live in? The difference between, in terms of your life quality, a person owning $1 billion and $100 billion is absolutely nothing. It doesn't change in any way, shape, or form your ability to experience or buy the things you want to buy. It has no effect whatsoever on that. However, the world ending does. Billionaires also don't benefit from the eradication of human life on the planet. They just don't. So why are we all careening towards an outcome everyone foresees and nobody wants? Why do you keep repeating this specific point? Because unfortunately, no matter how many times I say it or how loud I say it, not every human being alive is a Marxist. Sorry, because they don't have a rational self-interest, just perceived. No. Oligarchs know about anthropogenic climate change. It's also in their perceived self-interest to prevent climate change. So why don't they? It's because they're part of the capital class, and the self-interest of the capital class from a class dynamic is the advancement of their power over the proletariat. It's an adversarial relationship. And climate change, if anything, heightens the distinction. Much like how in the excellent book, 1984, the inner party is interested in increasing the amount of suffering in everyone's lives, so long as more suffering is inflicted on the lower classes. So too is the capital class directed to increase the suffering of all people alive, so long as that it's disproportionately directed against the proletariat. Like racism, but with class? Exactly. See, it's always been a point that I reiterate because people often forget. White supremacy does not benefit white people. Nazism did not benefit the German Aryan people. It led to them getting bombed and their country annihilated, divvied up in four, and conquered. A lot of them died. Nazism didn't benefit German Aryans. White supremacy doesn't benefit whites. Jewish supremacy doesn't benefit Jewish people or Israelis. These are irrational doctrines. Yet people act on them anyway. Likewise, the dogma of the capital class, the infinite acquisition of everything, the over-financialization of the universe, This doesn't benefit them. Their lives aren't made better by it, but still inexorably they're drawn towards it like moths to a flame. It doesn't matter how smart or well-intentioned or rational they are, because the incentive structures that dictate the behavior of their class still direct them here. As inexorably and unavoidably as water moves downhill, whether or not it means it's leading towards something undesirable. We're talking about incentive structures that go well beyond perceived individual self-interest.
Intense heat reaches its peak, bringing severe and excessive heat to the UK, France, Italy and parts of Central Europe. Europe is the world's fastest warming continent due to climate change.
Don't worry, AMOC will collapse eventually.
There's a rare amber warning for extreme heat in force across a large swathe of the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could climb into the high 30s in the English Midlands, East and South East. Amber heat health alerts, which warn of significant impacts to health and social care services, are already in place until Friday evening. Our climate editor, Justin Rolat, reports.
The Royal College of Nursing said today scores of calls to its advice line described nursing staff trying to care for patients in hospitals and care homes where temperature...
Like every alcoholic knows they're killing themselves slowly with booze. How many do anything about it? Yeah, another great way of understanding it. Unfortunately, rational self-interest or even perceived self-interest don't really have that much to do with the behavior of groups of people on average, you know?
An amber weather warning for extreme heat remains in force across a large part of England, with temperatures forecast to peak at up to 38 degrees Celsius. The Royal College of Nursing has warned about the impact of the heat on hospitals and care homes, saying many are not fit for humans and that patients are suffering and nursing staff are collapsing on shift. An amber weather warning for extreme...
Yeesh. Amber's too subtle of a color. Amber's barely even a color, you know? I mean, first and foremost, when I think of amber, I think of the crystallized sap, you know? The color is kind of a second thing. It'd be like saying a ruby weather alert. Like ruby is a color, you know, sapphire weather alert, right? I understand it refers to a color, but for the most part, I think of...
The UK is facing the 5th heat wave of what has already been an exceptionally hot and dry summer. Extreme heat alerts have been issued.
Remember, it's going to be worse next year, by quite a bit.
Across every region in England, with warnings that temperatures could reach as high as 38 degrees. More than 2/3 of England are now officially in drought after the driest July since record began almost 2 centuries ago. A total of 45 million people are living in drought conditions, with more than 27 million people facing water use restrictions. Here in London, parks and green spaces have turned yellow and dusty due to a lack of rainfall. This latest heat wave is being felt across much of Western Europe, with temperatures soaring in France and Spain.
Whenever I even mention climate change, people around me will just tell me, don't be doomsaying, don't scare me like that. Yeah, no, unfortunately, like the social mandate required to even begin to implement the changes necessary will probably only really happen after millions of people are dead. In the West, millions of people have already died in the global South and will continue to die. I don't know how many exactly will need to die, 10, 50 million people in America, but eventually there is some theoretical number past which people are going to be willing to do basically anything to stop it. Probably won't even take that long, to be honest with you. Supply lines will collapse well before that number of people die. And a lot of people are going to start... Oh, it's going to be brutal. Real estate prices will come down then, yes. Maybe they will, yeah. Probably be a lot of squatting. Who's going to bother taking out a mortgage when they think the world is ending? What should we do as Western individuals to survive? Honestly, the best thing that you can do to improve your chances of survival is be friends with your neighbors and be physically healthy. If you're not physically healthy in a way that you can't really fix, that does suck. If you can fix it, I strongly suggest you do everything you can to stay physically fit. The last thing you want is a prolonged chronic health issue while the world is ending, you know? I always feel more positive after a Vaush climate pep talk. Just enjoy 2026. It'll be the nicest weather for the rest of your lives.